The knock came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night that felt like the end of something I couldn't name yet. I was sitting in my kitchen, nursing a beer, and staring at the divorce papers my lawyer had drawn up 3 weeks ago, but I'd been too much of a coward to serve. The house felt hollow, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. When I opened the door, Sarah stood there in jeans and a hoodie, her dark hair pulled back, eyes red but determined. She looked nothing like her sister Lila. Where Lila was all curves and calculated charm, Sarah was lean and sharp, with a kind of beauty that didn't need makeup or performance. She was also married to Eric, my wife's lover, though neither of us was supposed to know that yet. "Tom," she said, and her voice had the same exhausted quality mine had carried for months. "We need to talk." I stepped aside without a word. Sarah had never come to my house alone before. Hell, she'd barely spoken to me at family gatherings beyond polite small talk. But something in her posture told me this wasn't a social call. She walked straight to my kitchen table and sat down like she belonged there. I grabbed another beer from the fridge and set it in front of her. "Your wife is sleeping with my husband," she said without preamble, "and I have a plan to catch them. Are you in?" The words hit like a punch I'd been expecting for months. I'd known about Lila's affair the way you know it's going to rain. All the signs were there, the pressure building, the air getting thick and strange. The late nights at the office that smelled like cologne when she came home, the way she'd started showering immediately after work, how she'd stopped looking me in the eye during conversations. But hearing it said out loud, by Sarah, of all people, made it real in a way that hurt worse than I'd expected. "How long have you known?" I asked, settling into the chair across from her. 3 months, Sarah said, popping open the beer. "Maybe longer. At first I thought I was being paranoid. Eric started working late, going to the gym at weird hours, buying new clothes. Then I found receipts for restaurants I'd never been to, hotels for client meetings that didn't exist." She took a long drink and continued. "The final proof came 2 weeks ago. I hired a private investigator. Cost me $2,000 I didn't have, but I needed to be sure. Photos, video, the whole ugly package. Your wife and my husband at the Marriott downtown, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon." "Tuesday and Thursday," I repeated. Lila's been telling me she has yoga class those days. "Eric says he's at the driving range." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Turns out they're both terrible liars. We're just terrible at wanting to believe the truth." I stared at my beer bottle, picking at the label. Part of me felt relief. The crazy-making doubt was over. The gaslighting had a name. But mostly I felt tired. Bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. "So what's this plan?" I asked. Sarah leaned forward, and for the first time since she'd arrived, I saw something that looked like hope in her eyes. "Tomorrow is your anniversary, right? 5 years?" "6," I corrected automatically. "Perfect. Even better. Lila's been planning something special, hasn't she? Dinner, maybe a weekend away?" I nodded. Lila had been unusually attentive the past week, talking about a romantic dinner she wanted to cook, how we needed to reconnect. I'd assumed it was guilt, but now I wondered if it was something else entirely. "Here's what I'm thinking," Sarah said. "We give them exactly what they want, a clear night to be together. But we make sure they choose our house, our terms. Then we walk in on them with witnesses." "Witnesses?" "Your friend Andy, maybe my cousin Beth. People they can't charm or manipulate. People who'll remember exactly what they saw." I thought about Andy, my construction partner and the closest thing I had to a brother. He'd never liked Lila, said she had scheming eyes. I'd defended her back then. Now I wondered why. "They're not stupid," I said. "They won't just walk into a trap." "They will if they think they're setting one themselves." Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade. "What if you had to leave town suddenly? Work emergency, family crisis, something that would keep you away overnight. And what if Eric had a similar emergency that took him out of town too?" I was starting to see the shape of it. They'd have a whole night together, in our house, where they'd feel safe. Exactly. Lila gets to play house with her lover in your bed, probably thinking she's getting away with the perfect crime. Meanwhile, we come back early with witnesses and catch them red-handed. The plan was simple, elegant, and absolutely devastating. It would destroy any chance Lila had of spinning this as a misunderstanding or claiming I was paranoid. It would give me the kind of evidence that would make the divorce quick and brutal. "There's one problem," I said. "After we catch them, then what? They'll know we work together. Eric will think you and I are—" "Let him think whatever he wants," Sarah said fiercely. "I'm done protecting his feelings. I'm done protecting anyone's feelings except my own." She was right. We'd both spent months walking on eggshells, pretending not to notice the obvious, making excuses for people who didn't deserve them. It was time to stop being polite. "Okay," I said. "I'm in. But we do this smart. No violence, no crazy revenge fantasies. Just the truth, served cold. Sarah raised her beer bottle. To the truth. I clinked my bottle against hers. And to making sure it hurts. The next morning, I called in the performance of my lifetime. I waited until Lila was in the shower, then dialed my phone loud enough for her to hear through the bathroom door. Andy? Yeah, it's Tom. What do you mean the foundation is sinking? How bad is... Jesus Christ, are you serious? The whole north wall? I let my voice carry the perfect note of panic and frustration. Through the bathroom door, I could hear the water stop running. No, I have to come look at this myself. If the city inspector sees this tomorrow, we're screwed. We'll lose the contract, maybe get sued. Yeah, I know it's my anniversary. Do you think I want to drive to Cleveland right now? Lila emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her face a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was beautiful. I'd never stopped noticing that, even when I'd started hating her. Dark hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that made men stupid. It had made me stupid for 6 years. What's wrong? She asked, but I could see the calculation behind the question. She was already thinking about how this crisis could become an opportunity. I covered the phone with my hand. Foundation problem on the Morrison job. Major structural issue. I have to drive up there tonight, probably won't be back until late tomorrow. Oh no, Lila said, and I had to admire her acting. She sounded genuinely disappointed. What about our anniversary dinner? I'm sorry, baby. I know you've been planning something special. Can we postpone until the weekend? Of course, she said, already turning away to hide what I was sure was relief. Work comes first. I understand. I finished the fake conversation with Andy, making sure to establish that I'd be leaving that afternoon and wouldn't be back until Thursday evening at the earliest. When I hung up, Lila was already getting dressed, moving with the kind of energy she only had when she was excited about something. I might call Sarah, she said casually, pulling on a blouse. Maybe we can have a girls' night since you'll be gone. That sounds nice, I said, wondering if she could hear the irony in my voice. You two should spend more time together. An hour later, I was in Sarah's apartment, watching her make a similar performance for Eric's benefit. She was better at it than I was. More subtle, more believable. When she hung up the phone, she looked satisfied. Eric's emergency is a client meeting in Chicago, she said. Apparently a major investor wants to meet tonight or the deal falls through. He'll be gone until Thursday night. How'd he take it? Like Christmas morning. He was practically packing before I finished explaining. Sarah's expression darkened. 6 years of marriage, and the man has never been that excited about spending time with me. We spent the next hour coordinating details. Andy would bring his girlfriend Jenny as a witness. She was a nurse, calm under pressure, and had no love for Lila after an incident at a barbecue where Lila had made some cutting comments about blue-collar women. Sarah would bring her cousin Beth, a paralegal who knew how to document evidence. We come back at exactly 9 p.m., Sarah said. That gives them enough time to get comfortable, maybe have some wine, definitely get careless. What if they are not here? What if they go to a hotel instead? They won't. Lila's been talking about cooking dinner for you all week, right? She'll want to use your kitchen, your dishes, your bed. It's part of the thrill for her, playing house with her lover in her husband's space. Sarah was right, and I hated how well she understood her sister's psychology. But then, she'd had years to study Lila's patterns, just like I had. I left for my fake emergency at 2 p.m., making a show of throwing clothes in a bag and kissing Lila goodbye. She hugged me tight and told me to drive safely, and for a moment, I almost believed she meant it. I love you, she whispered against my neck. I love you too, I said automatically, and realized it might be the last time I'd ever say those words to her. I drove to Andy's house and spent the afternoon helping him rebuild a deck, trying to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't spiral. Andy knew what was happening. I'd filled him in that morning, and he kept the conversation light, telling stories about job sites and difficult customers. You sure you want to do this? He asked around 5 o'clock as we were cleaning up tools. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I've already seen it, I said. I've been seeing it for months. Now I just want proof. Jenny arrived at Andy's house at 6, bringing Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. She was a good woman, steady, honest, the kind of person you wanted in your corner during a crisis. When Andy had explained the situation, her first response had been to volunteer as a witness. Cheating spouses are like cancer, she'd said. The sooner you cut them out, the better your chances. At 8:30, we met Sarah and Beth in the parking lot of a grocery store 3 blocks from my house. Beth was a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s, dressed like she was going to court instead of catching cheaters. She had a small digital camera and a notebook, ready to document everything. Remember, Sarah said as we walked toward my house, we're not here to fight or make a scene. We're here to gather evidence and end this cleanly." "What if they try to deny it?" Jenny asked. "They can't deny what we're about to see," I said. My house looked normal from the outside. Lights on in the living room and kitchen. Lila's car in the driveway next to Eric's BMW. They hadn't even tried to hide. The arrogance of it made my chest tight with anger. I unlocked the front door as quietly as possible. The sound of laughter drifted from the kitchen, along with the smell of something expensive cooking. Lila had indeed made a special dinner, just not for me. We crept through the living room toward the kitchen, and I could hear their voices clearly now. "This is so much better than sneaking around hotels," Lila was saying. "I love cooking in a real kitchen." "Your kitchen," Eric corrected, and they both laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. "Well, it will be soon enough. Tom's so clueless, I could probably keep this going for years if I wanted to." "What about Sarah?" Eric asked. "What about her? She's even more clueless than Tom. Sometimes I think she deserves what she gets for being so boring." I felt Sarah stiffen beside me, and I put a hand on her arm to keep her from moving forward too soon. We needed to hear more. "So, what's the timeline?" Eric continued. "When do we stop pretending?" "After I get the house and the divorce. Tom's been putting money into renovations, and I'm not walking away empty-handed. Give me 6 more months to document his emotional abuse and controlling behavior, and I can take him for everything." The words hit like physical blows. Not only was she cheating, she was planning to destroy me financially and emotionally. She was going to paint me as an abuser to justify her betrayal. I looked at Sarah and saw my own rage reflected in her eyes. This wasn't just adultery. It was a calculated destruction of 2 marriages and 2 lives. "Ready?" I whispered. She nodded. We walked into the kitchen together. Lila and Eric were standing at the kitchen island, wine glasses in hand, looking like a magazine spread for domestic bliss. Lila had changed into a red dress I'd bought her for Christmas. Eric wore a button-down shirt that probably cost more than I made in a week. They looked perfect together. Beautiful, successful, completely at home in my kitchen. The moment they saw us, the wine glasses slipped from their hands and shattered on the tile floor. "Hello, darling," I said to Lila, my voice conversational. "How was your girls' night with Sarah?" Lila's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, fear, anger, calculation. She was trying to find an angle, a story that would make this look innocent. But there was no innocent explanation for why her brother-in-law was in my kitchen at 9 p.m., cooking dinner and talking about taking my house. "Tom," she started, but her voice cracked on my name. "Don't," Sarah said sharply. "Don't insult our intelligence with lies." Eric had gone pale, his usual confidence evaporating. He looked like he wanted to run, but Andy and Jenny were blocking the doorway behind us, and Beth was calmly taking pictures with her camera. "We heard everything," I continued, stepping over the broken glass. "The timeline, the house, the plan to frame me as abusive. All of it." "You can't just break into your own house," Eric started. "My house," I corrected. "My kitchen, my wife. At least she was my wife until about 5 minutes ago." Sarah moved to stand beside me, and I realized we must look like a united front to them. The betrayed spouses, calm and controlled while the cheaters fell apart. 6 months, Sarah said to Eric, her voice deadly quiet. "You were going to keep lying to me for 6 more months while you helped her steal Tom's house." "Sarah, it's not what you think," Eric tried. "It's exactly what I think. It's exactly what we both think. Because we're not as stupid as you believed we were." Lila had recovered enough to attempt her usual manipulation tactics. She turned to me with tears in her eyes, reaching out like she wanted to touch my arm. "Tom, please?" "Yes, Eric and I have gotten close, but we haven't done anything wrong. We were just talking, just having dinner. You're misunderstanding what you heard." "Am I misunderstanding the hotel receipts?" I asked. "The private investigator photos? The fact that you've been screwing him every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months?" Her face crumpled, but I could see the calculation behind the tears. She was still looking for an angle. "We can work through this," she whispered. "Marriage counseling, whatever you want. I made a mistake, but it doesn't have to end everything." "A mistake," I repeated. "Is that what you call planning to destroy my life?" "Because that's what I heard you talking about. Taking my house, claiming I abused you, keeping this going for 6 more months." Eric finally found his voice. "Look, nobody has to get hurt here. We can all be adults about this." "Adults," Andy said from the doorway, speaking for the first time. "That's rich, coming from a guy who's been sneaking around like a teenager." "This is between Tom and Lila," Eric said desperately. "It has nothing to do with you." "It has everything to do with me," Sarah said. "You're my husband, she's my sister. You've both been lying to my face for months while planning to destroy 2 marriages. Beth stepped forward, still taking pictures. For the record, it's now 9:17 p.m. on Wednesday, October 15th. Present are Tom and Lila Morrison, Eric and Sarah Chen, Andy Martinez, Jenny Rodriguez, and myself, Beth Williams. We've witnessed Eric Chen and Lila Morrison together in the Morrison home, having prepared dinner and discussing plans to continue their extramarital affair while defrauding Mr. Morrison in divorce proceedings. "You can't use any of this in court," Lila said frantically. "You broke in, you're recording without consent." "I didn't break into my own house," I said calmly. "And Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings. But we're not recording audio anyway, just taking pictures of you two together in my kitchen, wearing the dress I bought you, drinking wine from glasses I paid for." The legal reality was sinking in for both of them. This wasn't just embarrassing, it was evidence that would hold up in divorce court. "What do you want?" Eric asked, and I could hear the desperation in his voice. "I want you out of my house," I said. "Both of you, now." "Tom, please," Lila tried again. "Let's talk about this privately. Send everyone else away and we can work this out." "There's nothing to work out. You made your choice months ago. You chose him over me, lies over truth, theft over honesty. Now you get to live with the consequences." Sarah stepped forward and handed Eric a manila envelope. "Divorce papers. I filed this morning, before we came here. You have 30 days to respond." I pulled out my own envelope and set it on the kitchen island, next to the remains of their romantic dinner. "Same here, Lila. I filed yesterday." The timing was a lie. I'd filed the papers that afternoon, after Sarah had called to confirm Eric had taken the bait, but it sounded better this way. It made us look like we'd been planning this for weeks instead of hours. "You can't be serious," Lila said, but her voice was smaller now, less confident. "Dead serious. You wanted to take my house? Good luck explaining to a judge why you were planning to defraud me while committing adultery. You wanted to claim I was abusive? Good luck making that stick when we have witnesses to your real character." Eric was looking around the room like a trapped animal. "This is insane. You're both insane." "We're practical," Sarah corrected. "We're done being married to liars and cheaters. We're done pretending we don't see what's right in front of us." "Get out," I said again, and this time my voice carried real menace. "Take whatever you can carry tonight. Lila, you can come back for the rest of your things this weekend with Sarah present as a witness." "Where am I supposed to go?" Lila asked, and for the first time she sounded genuinely afraid. "That's not my problem anymore. Maybe Eric can put you up. Maybe you can finally stop sneaking around." Eric and Lila looked at each other, and I saw the moment they realized their fantasy was over. They weren't going to get my house, or Sarah's savings, or 6 more months of playing both sides. They were going to get exactly what they deserved, each other and nothing else. "This isn't over," Lila said as she grabbed her purse. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's been over for months. We're just making it official." They left together, Eric's arm around Lila's shoulders, looking like the couple they'd always wanted to be. I watched from my front window as they got into Eric's BMW and drove away into the night. When I turned back to the kitchen, Sarah was already cleaning up the broken wine glasses. "Leave it," I said. "I'll deal with it tomorrow." "It's fine," she said. "I need to keep my hands busy or I might start screaming." Andy, Jenny, and Beth gathered their things and prepared to leave, but not before Jenny hugged me tight. "You did the right thing," she said. "It's going to hurt for a while, but you did the right thing." After they left, Sarah and I sat in my living room, drinking beer and not talking. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow, like a fever had broken. "So what happens now?" Sarah asked eventually. "Now we get divorced and try to rebuild our lives." "Together?" I looked at her, this woman who'd appeared at my door with a plan and the courage to execute it. She was beautiful, but more than that, she was honest. She was brave. She was everything Lila had never been. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe. When we're both ready." She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her all night. "I'd like that," she said. "When we're ready." The next morning brought the consequences. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. and didn't stop for 3 hours. Lila's mother, her best friend Jessica, her co-workers, even people I barely knew, all of them calling to get my side of the story, or to tell me I was making a mistake, or to demand I take Lila back. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages were predictable. Lila's mother blamed me for driving her daughter away with my neglect and emotional coldness. Jessica accused me of setting a trap and being vindictive and cruel. A few of Lila's coworkers suggested I was having a midlife crisis and should consider therapy. None of them mentioned Eric. None of them acknowledged that Lila had been planning to defraud me. They all acted like I was the villain for refusing to be a victim. Sarah texted me around noon. Getting the same calls? Want to grab lunch and compare notes? We met at a diner across town, away from the neighborhood where everyone knew us. Sarah looked tired but determined, wearing jeans and a sweater that made her look younger than her 32 years. Eric's been calling all morning, she said after we'd ordered, begging me to reconsider, promising it was just a midlife crisis, swearing he'll cut contact with Lila. Are you tempted? Not even a little. You? Lila left me 17 voicemails. I deleted them without listening. Good. They had their chance to be honest. They chose lies instead. The waitress brought our coffee, and we sat in comfortable silence for a moment. It felt strange, being out in public together. People would talk, especially after last night. But I found I didn't care what people thought anymore. There's something else, Sarah said eventually. I did some digging into Eric's finances this morning. I think he's been stealing from his clients. I looked up sharply. What kind of stealing? He's a financial advisor, right? Manages investment portfolios for small business owners. I found some paperwork in his office that doesn't add up. Funds being moved around, fees that seem way too high, clients who should be making money but aren't. That's federal fraud. I know. I'm meeting with a lawyer this afternoon and probably the SEC next week. I stared at her. Sarah, that could send him to prison. Good. Maybe he'll have time to think about his choices. There was something cold in her voice that I hadn't heard before, and I realized that Sarah's revenge was going to be much more thorough than mine. I was content to divorce Lila and move on. Sarah was going to destroy Eric completely. What about Lila? I asked. She might get caught up in this if they've been planning a future together. That's not my problem. If she's been helping him steal from clients, she deserves whatever she gets. After lunch, I drove to my office to check on the business. Andy was there, handling calls and scheduling jobs with his usual efficiency. He looked up when I walked in. How you holding up, boss? Better than expected. Any fallout from last night? Jessica called here looking for you. Told her you were busy. Also, Lila came by around 10. I felt my stomach tighten. What did she want? Said she needed to talk to you, that she could explain everything. I told her you weren't available and she should call your lawyer. How'd she take that? About like you'd expect. Lot of tears, lot of anger, said I was being cruel and unreasonable. Andy grinned. I told her I learned from the best. The rest of the day passed quietly. I threw myself into work, reviewing contracts and planning the next week's jobs. It felt good to focus on something concrete, something I could control. Around 5 p.m., my lawyer called. Tom, it's David. I just got off the phone with Lila's attorney. She wants to meet and discuss settlement terms. Already? It's been less than 24 hours. She's motivated. Apparently she's heard some rumors about her boyfriend's business practices and wants to distance herself quickly. So Sarah's investigation was already paying dividends. Word traveled fast in professional circles, and Eric's clients were probably starting to ask uncomfortable questions. What's she offering? Clean split. No alimony, no claim on the house or business. She keeps her car and personal belongings. You keep everything else. It was a better deal than I'd hoped for, but I was suspicious. What's the catch? No catch. She wants this done fast and quiet. Her lawyer mentioned something about potential federal investigations that she doesn't want to be associated with. Set up the meeting, but I want Sarah's lawyer there too, so we can coordinate both divorces. Already done. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. That evening, Sarah came over with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. We ate in my kitchen, at the same island where we'd confronted Lila and Eric the night before. It should have felt awkward, but it didn't. David called, I said. Lila wants to settle quickly. Eric, too. He's offering me the house, half his legitimate assets, and a promise to cooperate with the federal investigation. You're really going through with that? I already filed the complaint. The SEC is opening a formal investigation next week. Sarah's smile was sharp. Turns out Eric's been running a mini Ponzi scheme for 2 years, taking money from new clients to pay returns to old ones, skimming fees, the whole 9 yards. Jesus, how much money are we talking about? At least $2 million, maybe more. I stared at her. Sarah, this is huge. This isn't just divorce court. This is federal prison. I know, and I'm going to make sure he gets every year he deserves. There was something almost frightening about Sarah's calm determination. She wasn't acting out of emotion or spite. She was methodically destroying a man who'd betrayed her, using his own crimes as the weapon. What about Lila? I asked. If she gets caught up in this? Then she should have chosen better friends. We finished dinner in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Sarah spoke. "Do you think we're doing the right thing, going this far?" "They were going to destroy us," I said. "Lila was planning to claim I abused her, take my house, ruin my reputation. Eric was stealing from his clients and planning to keep doing it. We're not destroying them, we're just refusing to be their victims." I keep telling myself that, but sometimes I wonder if we're becoming the kind of people we used to hate. I thought about that for a long moment. Maybe, but I'd rather be someone I hate than someone I pity. Sarah nodded slowly. "When did we get so hard?" "When we had to." The settlement meeting was a masterpiece of legal efficiency. Lila sat across from me in David's conference room, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She'd dressed carefully, conservative suit, minimal makeup, the picture of a wronged wife seeking a fair resolution, but her hands shook when she signed the papers. Eric wasn't there. His lawyer explained that he was dealing with some business issues and had authorized Sarah to finalize their divorce without his presence. Sarah looked satisfied with this arrangement. "This is really what you want?" Lila asked me as we initialed the final documents. 6 years of marriage, and you're just throwing it all away? "I'm not throwing anything away," I said calmly. "You already did that. One mistake, Tom. One stupid mistake, and you're willing to destroy everything we built together." "One mistake?" Sarah looked up from her own paperwork. "Lila, you were planning to defraud him. You called me boring and said I deserved to be cheated on." "That's not a mistake. That's who you are." Lila's composure cracked. "You have no right to judge me. You've been planning this for weeks, setting traps, manipulating." "We've been protecting ourselves from people who were trying to destroy us," I interrupted. "There's a difference." The lawyers finished the paperwork, and just like that, my marriage was over. 6 years reduced to signatures on legal documents, division of assets, formal dissolution of what had once felt like forever. As we left the building, Lila grabbed my arm. "Tom, please, can we just talk? Alone?" I looked at her, really looked at her, for what I knew would be the last time. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in college. But I could see the calculation behind her eyes, the wheels turning as she tried to find an angle that would get her what she wanted. "There's nothing left to talk about," I said gently. "You made your choice, now live with it." "What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore." I walked away and didn't look back. Sarah was waiting by my truck, leaning against the hood with her face turned up to the sun. She looked peaceful for the first time since I'd known her. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Free," I said, and realized I meant it. "Eric's been arrested." I stopped walking. "When?" "This morning. Federal agents showed up at his office with a warrant. They seized his computers, his files, everything." Sarah's smile was cold and satisfied. "Turns out the SEC moves fast when they have good evidence." "Any word on charges?" "Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. His lawyer thinks he's looking at 10 to 15 years. I thought about Eric in handcuffs, being walked out of his office while his clients and coworkers watched. It should have felt like overkill, but it didn't. The man had been stealing from retirees and small business owners, funding his affair with their money. What about Lila? What about her? She's not my sister anymore, and she's not your wife. She's just another person who made bad choices. We drove to a bar downtown, one of those dark, quiet places where people go to think or forget. Sarah ordered whiskey neat. I got a beer. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now we figure out how to be normal people again." "Think we remember how?" "We'll learn." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the afternoon crowd filter in and out. Office workers grabbing quick drinks before heading home, construction crews celebrating the end of a long day, people living ordinary lives with ordinary problems. "I have a confession," Sarah said eventually. "What's that?" "I knew about the affair before I came to your house that night." I looked at her sharply. "How long before?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. I hired the private investigator, got the photos, had all the evidence I needed, but I couldn't bring myself to do anything about it. "Why not?" "Because I was scared. Scared of being alone, scared of starting over, scared of admitting that my marriage was a lie." She took a sip of whiskey. "Then I realized you were going through the same thing, and I thought maybe we could be scared together." So the plan wasn't really about catching them. It was about giving us both the courage to do what we already knew we had to do. Exactly. I thought about that night, Sarah standing on my doorstep with her plan and her determination. She'd saved us both, in a way, given us a path forward that felt like choice instead of defeat. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For knocking on my door. for having a plan, for being braver than I was. We were brave together. That's what made it work. The bar was filling up with the evening crowd, and the noise level was rising. Sarah finished her whiskey and stood up. I should go. Early day tomorrow. Sarah? She turned back. Would you like to have dinner sometime? When all this settles down, when we've both figured out how to be single again? Her smile was soft and genuine. I'd like that very much. It's a date, then. Our first real date. Our first honest date, she corrected. I watched her leave, then finished my beer and drove home. My house felt different now. Not empty, but clean. Like a space that was truly mine for the first time in years. I made myself dinner, watched a movie I'd wanted to see for months, went to bed early, simple pleasures that I'd forgotten I enjoyed. As I was falling asleep, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You'll regret what you did to me. Layla, probably, texting from a new phone. I deleted the message without responding. It was over. Whatever happened next, the lies and betrayal and manipulation were finished. Sarah and I had chosen truth over comfort, justice over peace. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. 3 months later, I was rebuilding my kitchen when Sarah knocked on my door. Not the desperate midnight knock of our first meeting, but a casual afternoon visit. She'd been doing that lately, stopping by after work, bringing coffee or dinner, helping me turn my house back into a home. We'd been taking things slow, figuring out how to be together without the crisis that had brought us together. It was working. Sarah was everything Lila had never been. Honest, direct, genuinely funny when she wasn't plotting revenge against federal criminals. How's the renovation coming? She asked, surveying the chaos of my kitchen. Slower than I'd like. Turns out I'm better at building other people's houses than my own. Need help? Always. We worked together for a couple of hours, installing new cabinet hardware and arguing about paint colors. It felt domestic in the best way. 2 people building something together instead of tearing each other down. Around 5 p.m., Sarah's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and her expression darkened. It's my lawyer, she said, answering. Hello, Mark. What? Are you serious? When? I stopped working and watched her face cycle through surprise, anger, and something that looked like satisfaction. Okay. Yes, I'll be there tomorrow. Thank you for calling. She hung up and turned to me with a grim smile. Eric took a plea deal. 15 years, full restitution to his victims, forfeiture of all assets. That's good news, right? It gets better. Apparently Lila was more involved than we thought. She'd been helping him move money, forge documents, even recruit new clients. The FBI has been building a case against her for weeks. I felt my stomach drop. Sarah. She's been arrested. Wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. Same charges as Eric, but she's not getting a plea deal. I sat down heavily on one of my new bar stools. How much trouble is she in? 20 years, maybe more. Turns out she was the one who came up with the idea of targeting small business owners. Eric was just the face of the operation. It was hard to process. Lila, who couldn't balance a checkbook, had been the mastermind behind a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The woman I'd been married to for 6 years was a federal criminal. There's something else, Sarah continued. The FBI wants to interview us. Apparently some of the evidence we gathered that night is relevant to their case. What kind of evidence? Remember when Beth was taking pictures? She caught Eric and Lila talking about the timeline and taking you for everything. The FBI thinks they were discussing the fraud scheme, not just the affair. I thought back to that night, to the conversation we'd overheard in my kitchen. Lila talking about documenting my emotional abuse, Eric asking about timeline. At the time, I'd thought they were planning a divorce strategy. Now I wondered if they'd been planning something much bigger. They were going to frame me, I said slowly. Not just for abuse, but for the financial crimes. Make it look like I was the one stealing from Eric's clients. Sarah nodded. That's what the FBI thinks. You were the perfect fall guy. Blue-collar contractor with access to Eric through family connections, married to his co-conspirator. If things went bad, they could claim you were blackmailing them or forcing them to help you. The scope of the betrayal was breathtaking. Not only had Lila been cheating and planning to steal my house, she'd been setting me up to take the fall for federal crimes that could have sent me to prison for decades. I need a drink, I said. We both do. We walked to the bar where we'd had our first honest conversation 3 months earlier. The same bartender was working, and he nodded recognition as we took our usual seats. Whiskey neat, Sarah ordered. Make it 2, I said. We drank in silence for a while, processing the magnitude of what we'd learned. Finally, Sarah spoke. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't caught them that night? They would have destroyed us. Completely. And gotten away with it. Eric would still be stealing from his clients. Lila would have your house and your reputation, and we'd both be broke and broken. Instead, they're going to federal prison. Justice, Sarah said, raising her glass. Justice, I agreed. We clinked glasses and drank to the destruction of people who'd tried to destroy us. The next morning, Sarah and I met with FBI agents at the federal building downtown. They were professional and thorough, walking us through everything that had happened that night in my kitchen. They were particularly interested in the timeline Lila and Eric had discussed and the specific language they'd used about taking my assets. This corroborates what we found in their financial records, Agent Martinez explained. They were planning to use your divorce as cover for moving stolen funds. Mrs. Morrison would claim the money as marital assets, then disappear with Mr. Chen once the heat died down. How much money? Sarah asked. We're still calculating, but we think they stole close to $4 million over 2 years. I stared at the agent. $4 million. Enough to disappear forever, to start new lives in a country without extradition treaties, enough to make destroying 2 marriages seem like a small price to pay. The good news is that we've recovered most of it, Agent Martinez continued. The victims will get their money back, with interest. What about restitution? Sarah asked. That's where things get interesting. Because you two were instrumental in stopping this scheme, and because you were intended victims of the conspiracy, you're entitled to compensation under the Federal Victims' Rights Act. What kind of compensation? We're still working out the details, but probably somewhere in the 6-figure range, each. Sarah and I looked at each other. We'd gone from being victims to being heroes to being beneficiaries, all because Sarah had been brave enough to knock on my door with a plan. There's one more thing, Agent Martinez said. We'd like you both to testify at trial. Your testimony about what you overheard that night could be crucial to securing convictions. When? I asked. Probably next spring. The defense will try to claim that Mrs. Morrison was just an unfaithful wife, not a criminal conspirator. Your testimony proves otherwise. We agreed to testify, signed some paperwork, and left the federal building feeling like we'd stepped through the looking glass. In 6 months, we'd gone from betrayed spouses to key witnesses in a major federal fraud case. Lunch? Sarah asked as we walked to our cars. I was thinking more like a vacation, somewhere warm, with good drinks and no federal agents. That sounds perfect. When do we leave? How about now? Sarah laughed, and it was the sound of someone who'd finally learned how to be happy. Now sounds perfect. 6 months later, I was sitting in a federal courtroom, watching Lila in an orange jumpsuit as the judge sentenced her to 18 years in federal prison. She looked older, harder, like the beautiful mask had finally slipped to reveal the criminal underneath. Eric got 22 years. He'd been the public face of the scheme, and the judge wasn't inclined to be lenient with someone who'd stolen retirement funds from elderly clients. Neither of them looked at Sarah or me during the sentencing. They'd both tried to claim we were vindictive ex-spouses seeking revenge, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, recorded phone calls. The FBI had built an airtight case. As the bailiff led them away in shackles, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. They'd had everything. Successful careers, comfortable lives, people who loved them, and they'd thrown it all away for money and the thrill of betrayal. Sarah and I walked out of the courthouse together into bright spring sunshine and the rest of our lives. So, she said, taking my hand, what do we do now? Now we go home. We finish renovating the kitchen. We plan our wedding. In that order? Definitely in that order. I'm not getting married in a house with unfinished cabinets. Sarah laughed and kissed me, right there on the courthouse steps in front of reporters and federal agents, and anyone else who cared to watch. We'd started as victims, become allies, then partners, and finally something that looked like love. Not the desperate, crisis-born connection that had brought us together, but something real and honest and built to last. 3 years later, we were married in the backyard of our renovated house, surrounded by friends and family and the life we'd built from the ashes of our destroyed marriages. Andy was my best man. Jenny was Sarah's maid of honor. Beth took pictures, though these were much happier than the ones she'd taken in my kitchen that night. During the reception, as Sarah and I danced to a song we'd chosen together, I caught sight of a newspaper someone had left on one of the tables. The headline read, "Local fraud victims receive final restitution payments." Lila and Eric were still in prison, still paying for their crimes. They'd be there for years to come, while Sarah and I built a life based on truth instead of lies, trust instead of betrayal. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, following my gaze to the newspaper. "Justice," I said. "And how sometimes it takes a while, but it always comes." "Always?" When good people refuse to be victims, she smiled and pulled me closer. Then here's to good people. And second chances. And kitchen renovations that actually get finished. We laughed and danced and celebrated the life we'd chosen together, the life we'd fought for and earned and deserved. Later that night, as we cleaned up from the reception, Sarah found the newspaper and started to throw it away. "Wait," I said, taking it from her. "I want to keep this." "Why?" "To remember. To remind us how far we've come." Sarah looked at the headline, then at me, then at the house we'd made into a home. "We did good," she said. "We did great." Think they ever regret it? Lila and Eric? I hope so, but it doesn't matter anymore. They made their choices, we made ours. And we chose each other. Best decision I ever made. Sarah smiled and kissed me, and I tasted the future on her lips, honest, hopeful, and completely ours.